Are people afraid of you, Beth?
Uh-huh.
Who's afraid of you, Beth?
John.
Your brother. And why is your brother afraid of you?
Because I hurt him so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And at nighttime, what do your parents do to your door?
Lock it shut.
Why do they lock it shut?
Because they don't want me to hurt John.
Right. And they're kind of afraid of hurting John? Of you hurting John?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are they afraid that you might hurt them?
Yep.
Would you, Beth?
Mm-hmm.
When would you do it?
Nighttime.
Okay. Why would you do nighttime?
Because I don't like them seeing me do it. But they can feel me do it.
Mm-hmm. And what would you do to him, Beth?
Stab him.
Okay. What would you stab him with?
A knife.
Okay. It's recording.
It's okay. We can get the beginning out. Okay. That was Beth Thomas, a child who suffers from schizophrenia. Some of you may assume that Beth's schizophrenia is a result of genes she inherited from her parents, and others may assume that it was because of the time of year she was born in or a traumatic event she experienced. Those of you who agree with the first speculation believe that traits received are wholly due to heredity. Those who side with the latter of the two believe that genes can be manipulated by our environment. This clash of opinions was the foundation of the nature versus nurture debate. One of the reasons this was so important was because by narrowing the influence of traits, we are presented with the possibility of manipulating in favor of the carrier. We can make our babies smarter, more athletic, or healthier.
Essentially, the nature against nurture debate discussed whether biology or environmental factors more exclusively affected traits and development of humans. The nurture side of the debate argued that we receive all characteristic and cognitive abilities through our genetics. The nurture side of the debate argued that the influence of external factors like the environment after conception were more vital in shaping the development of children. One in favor of the nature argument may use as support the fact that almost all children have the ability to learn to walk, understand language, imitate others, use simple tools, and draw inferences. Someone who sides with the nurture side of the debate may question the similarities in talents of people who are in the same family.
Although there are certain rare physical disorders that are virtually 100% inherited, a debate no longer needs to exist. It has been made clear through numerous experiments that nurture and nature work together to influence the phenotypes of traits like intelligence, health, and personality. This conclusion was arrived upon through the study of the relative influences of heredity and environment. One of the approaches to the study of heredity and environment was quantitative, the measurement of how much a trait is in a given environment is influenced by the environment. This measurement is the traditional goal of science of behavioral genetics. Behavioral genetics is developed a concept known as hereditability that allows them to estimate how much a trait is due to genetics and how much it is the result of environmental influences. Although hereditability, researchers look for people with known genetic relationships and assess whether or not they are concordant, same or any given trait. Behavioral geneticists can estimate the relative influence of genes and environments.
Are you shaped by your genes or by your environment? It's the problem that always gets in the way of studies on how genes are connected to complex traits. But twins offer a way to separate the effects of nature and nurture. Identical twins share virtually 100% of their genetic material. Fraternal twins share 50% of their genes.
By comparing identical and fraternal twins, we were able to demonstrate in a general way that genes have effects on almost everything.
Eric began looking at very large samples of twins from all around the U.S. from all socioeconomic groups. He used IQ as a predictor of future wealth of a child, a link most studies find to be very strong.
What we found was quite surprising. Children raised in poverty, their home environment was by far the most important factor. Their genes seemed to play almost no role at all.
If a child with genes predisposing him or her to be a financial wizard is raised in an extremely harsh environment, that exceptional DNA may not shine through.
And then as you moved from kids raised in those really terrible circumstances up to kids raised in the middle class, the role of genes became more and more and more important. And once you got to the middle class or better, genes took over. And by the time you got to the wealthiest people in the study, genes were making all the difference.
Genes do have important effects on how rich or poor children will be when they grow up, but it's an effect that is only visible when kids grow up outside of poverty.
To some extent, it's probably true that people who wind up living in poverty have some kind of genetic difference from people who wind up making a lot of money. I think what our work has shown is that it doesn't matter what kind of genetic tendencies some of these kids may have had. If they're raised in a bad enough environment, they're not going to be able to express them.
Heritability is the statistical estimate of contribution of heredity to individual differences in a specific trait within a given population at a particular time. There are three different types of heritability studies. Family studies, twin studies, and adoption studies. Family studies measure how biological relatives share certain traits and whether the closeness of the familial relationship is associated with the degree of similarity. These studies are done to prove that the closer the two relatives are together, the more likely it is that they will have a similar trait. Although this is true, family studies cannot rule out the influences of the environment. So, researchers do adoption studies. These studies help to separate the effects of heredity from those of the environment.
Adoption studies are conducted to look at similarities between adopted children and their adoptive families, and also between adopted children and their biological families. In the case that adopted children are more like their adoptive parents, we see the influence of environment, and if the adoptive children are more in common with their biological parents, we see the influence of heredity at work. Twin studies compare monozygotic twins with same-sex dizygotic twins. Same-sex twins are used to avoid any confounding variables when identical twins are more concordant on the trait than fraternal twins. We see the likely effect of heredity.
Though heritability is highlighted heavily through these studies, they still coincide with environmental factors. Even a trait strongly influenced by heredity, the environment can still have a substantial impact. Many characteristics vary within limits under differing hereditary or environmental conditions. The concept of reaction range and canalization can help us visualize how this happens. canalization range is the conventional term for
We'll start again.
Canalization is the limitation or invariance of expression of certain inherited characters.
Some traits have an extremely small range of reaction. The metaphor of canalization illustrates how heredity restricts the range of development for some traits. After a heavy storm, the rainwater that has fallen on a pavement has to go somewhere. If deep canals have been dug along the edges of the street, the water will fall into the canals. Highly canalized traits like eye colors or are analogous to the deep canals. They are strongly programmed by genes, and there is little opportunity for variance in their expression. Behaviors that depend largely on maturation seem to appear when a child is ready. Normal babies follow a predictable sequence of motor development: crawling, walking, and running, in that order at certain approximate ages. Cognition and personality are not highly canalized. They are more subject to variation in experience, the kinds of families children grow up in, the schools they attend, and the people they encounter.